in the Green Berets. Trying to find my stuff here, David. David, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Thank
It's
you.
an honor to meet you. I ask everybody that I meet. I have a lot of friends that went to Vietnam. Some didn't come home. But you went to Vietnam when?
Well, I went over to Vietnam in September of 1967. And I was actually only there for 4 months because I was wounded in December of '67 and sent back to the States.
So let's back up a little bit to when you went into the service. You graduated from college, and you were drafted. You were either going to be drafted or you sign up. So you volunteered.
Yes, I did. I graduated from OU in '65, got draft notice within a few weeks, went down to the standard building like everybody did that was drafted, took the physicals, and at the time I was single, didn't have any girlfriends or anything, and so I decided to join up at the request of the recruiting sergeant. And what they did is they had a program. It was college op OCS program. Since I was a college graduate, they would guarantee me OCS. Being naive at the time, not realizing that the Army never gave you what you wanted.
A lot of promises.
A lot of promises, but they did follow through, and I went to Fort Benning for OCS after being an enlisted man for 6 months or so.
Officer Candidate School.
Officers Candidate School, yes. And I graduated, became commissioned second lieutenant on September 13th, 1967. They gave us some options on graduating, and although I was married at the time, I was enamored by the Green Berets, and so I decided to volunteer for it. I don't think my wife was too happy, and I went to jump school at Fort Benning, learned how to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, and then I was sent to Fort Bragg in the Special Warfare section, and went through training for the rest of the year on how to be an officer.
I want to ask you, basic training was usually 12 weeks, right? Was it, how long was the training for the Green Beret?
Well, the training before I got to Vietnam was over a year. The first part was about 3 months, and then I had to go through additional training in my unit, which was with the 7th Special Forces. And then we had pre-deployment training, so it was pretty extensive. I made first lieutenant before I got to Vietnam. Most people don't realize, but the assignment of the Green Berets in Vietnam was counterinsurgency, and we were assigned to A teams all over the country. The particular A team that I was with was A341 Boot Op, and we were on the Cambodian border, almost due north on the border from Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City today. And what we did is we trained and we worked with the Vietnamese
The South
people.
Vietnamese people.
Yes.
South Viet, yeah. And of course you were constant targets, weren't you?
Yes, the VC had bounties on us. They were very afraid of us, rightly so. And if they could capture you, you could expect to be tortured and killed.
How many was in your what would you call it, regiment or?
Well, the camp I was with, it's called the Civilian Irregular Defense Group, and it's kind of like a militia of the Vietnamese people, and there were roughly 400, 4 companies, about 100 each, and they they were mainly guided by the Vietnamese Green Berets, were the Luc Quang Duc Bic, which was Vietnamese for Green Beret. So we were the advisors to them. And we were there would be a 12-man team, that's a normal special forces team, and we would be the only Americans there. It would be just the 12 of us.
It was pretty easy to identify as Yanks.
Very much so. They're the Vietnamese are a little shorter.
Yeah. Talk to me about this, the Tet offensive in 1968. That made the huge news. And it was right before, I remember, before the convention in Chicago, where there was riots.
All the riots and everything.
Talk about
Yes.
that Tet offensive. How intense was that? How dangerous was it for you guys?
Well, I can speak for the early parts of it when I was there in '67, because they were building up the forces for the offensive, which was coming in a few months in January, and it was. When you study it after the fact, it was a little odd. The American intelligence units knew that the Vietnamese couldn't take over the country. And the Vietnamese thought they could take over the country by their intelligence. So both intelligence groups thought they could win their section. We would beat them, and they thought they were going to beat us, in essence. And so the Americans thought the intel they had that they were going to attack the cities was crazy, and so they thought they were going to go to the border and fight at the border. So the American units were moving toward the border, while the Vietnamese were moving toward the cities.
North
So-
Vietnamese.
The Vietnamese,
Yeah.
the North Vietnamese.
Yeah.
North, yeah. The Viet Cong, right?
The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army. So when they attacked, it was a really big surprise, but they had kind of thought the people would support them, the Vietnamese people, and they didn't. And
South Vietnamese.
so it ended up being actually a complete rout. The Americans just decimated them, and the Vietnamese army, the South, participated in that, and they were just soundly defeated. It was a horrible defeat. But the press back in the States said it was a defeat of the Americans, that we didn't know what we were doing, and that we had really screwed up the war.
Would that be the 60s version of fake news?
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, we didn't have that phrase then. We got a lot of that now, though. Okay, good, continue. Let me ask you about the Green Berets were set up by John F. Kennedy, weren't they? Or were they? Am I wrong?
No, it goes back a little farther. It goes back to World War II.
Well, actually, I didn't know.
And the OSS. And for some reason, Truman disbanded the OSS after the war, and so we lost that kind of ability. A few years later, in 1952, they decided to start it up again, and they formed the first Green Beret units at that point.
Oh, I see.
And they brought in as many of the old OSS guys as they possibly could. So. Colonel Aaron Bank was the primary person that was responsible. And they did, at the time, we were heavily involved with the CIA and did a lot of clandestine operations.
The Green Berets.
The Green Berets,
Yep.
yes. Pretty much all over the world. When Kennedy took office, and the French had screwed up in Vietnam, and we were there now trying to straighten it out. He heard about the units that were the Green Berets, and got a demo at Fort Bragg, 18th Airborne headquarters. And actually one of my friends from Cleveland, Ernie Tassif, who's passed now, was a Yugoslavian, and he was on the demo team that did the demonstration for President Kennedy.
Mhm.
And then he authorized the use of the Green Beret.
Oh, I see. I say, listen, how many of your friends, your division, did you lose in Vietnam?
Well, of the unit that I was with, which was 12, and sometimes we had a few extras there, 12 to 14 men, in that period from September, well, actually the battles started in October through December. I know 7 people on the wall.
7 of the 12.
Yeah.
So they're on the Vietnam War wall in Washington.
In Washington, D.C., yes.
And you mentioned here about a 4.2-inch mortar position the night of December the 7th and 8th. Talk about that for a minute, can you?
Well, yes. That was where I was.
4.2-inch gun, that's a pretty big gun.
It's about as big a mortar that you can, but a mortar round is dropped in a tube and it fires out.
Okay.
It's not quite like a cannon. But in any case, we had a 4.2-inch mortar in the camp, and we had taken a lot of casualties. Now, I was the executive officer, and there was a captain in charge. So, because there's only 2 American officers, we always protected one. The captain was responsible, so of course he was manning the battlements. And I was at the executive officer. I would normally be in the commo bunker. So if the captain was killed, I could take his place. But we had taken so many casualties that I was out in that position showing the new guys where to fire the rounds. And we took an incoming round in the ammo bunker, which exploded and basically threw shrapnel and explosive forces into the position. All 3 of us were very badly wounded, mostly burns, and sent back to the States.
You went back to Texas,
Back
right?
to Texas. Fort Sam Houston, there's a burn center there. And the other 2 guys died there, and I was the only one that lived.
Lucky. Just lucky. It was dangerous, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Right? It was almost as dangerous as the Civil War.
I don't know about as bad as the
Yeah,
Civil War, but
was
it
very
was,
brutal, awful brutal. I always think of these charges they had with bayonets. My goodness, why see that coming at you?
there was some of that in Vietnam.
Was there
Yeah.
some bayonet charges?
Oh, yeah.
I imagine the Viet Cong used everything, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, had anybody been burned in the Civil War like Dave was burned, they would have died.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
They had given me a 10% chance of living.
So you were shipped back to Texas, and then you stayed in the service until what? 1969.
1969, yes.
Well, Dave, I'm sure everybody's listening would thank you for your service to the country, and you were a brave man that did it. The Green Berets, they were really the elite of the army, weren't they?
Green Berets were the best trained, best soldiers the country ever had.
I believe it. I believe it. We've heard that. We've heard that many times. And oh yeah, by the way, most important of all, you met John Wayne, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah, I did. This would have been in the summer of '67 before I went to Vietnam, and I was with the 7th Special Forces there, and they had the mission of supporting the John Wayne in the movie The Green Beret. And for some reason, somebody assigned me as one of the for one of the scenes, and I put together. Well, I shouldn't say I put together. A team was put together of Green Berets, and we flew down to Pensacola, Florida, and we were supposed to do a shot for the movie. And what we did is we did a night parachute jump from World War II planes, C-47, which is the military version of the DC-3. And so I got to do 2 jumps for the movie, and unfortunately, as the senior officer there, I was actually technically a stand-in for John Wayne.
Just like him.
But my part got cut.
No.
When the song came out by Barry Sadler, how did the Green Berets react to the song?
Well, at the time, we weren't real happy.
Why?
The reason was we were tasked to go on secret missions all over the world. And you weren't supposed to have tattoos, you weren't supposed to have any identification on you. If you were captured, you were supposed to deny you were in essence a spy. So the movie, or I shouldn't say the movie, but the song gave notoriety to the unit.
Oh, yeah.
And so at the time it was not universally disliked, but there was consternation in the units.
I suppose, Dave, it's a bit like the SEALs were up till a few years ago. Nobody knew who the Navy SEAls were.
Well, that's better.
And
That's
now,
we're all better for
yeah,
that.
and now, of course, everybody knows about the SEAls and what they do, and I suppose they're less effective when they're better known.
They are, but they're not that good to begin with.
Go Army.
Ooh.
How many parachute jumps did you make?
I did 15,
15. Oh.
which is a very small amount normally.
Yeah.
If I would have been in, I would have been into the hundreds, if not thousands.
Well, one of my sons was in the Navy. My son Sean was in the Navy, and he said and I believe he did 2,600 jumps.
Well, it could be, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
It's fun.
Oh yeah, he's that kind, all right. All right. Well, listen, we got to get. I'm going to get back here to the program, and I have to get back and talk some more to the Civil War people here. There will be a Civil War.